Welcome to CKLA Knowledge 4, Lesson 1, A Father and His Son in Mesopotamia. Our purpose for listening today is to discuss the word ancient. We will also explain the importance of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. We want to listen to understand the words trade and banks. Can you say trade? Can you say banks? Over the next few weeks, we are going to pretend to travel back in time to learn how two different groups of people lived thousands of years ago. We're going to learn the word ancient. We'll hear the word ancient a lot over the next few days. The word ancient can be used to describe a time period in which these people lived. The word ancient will also mean a very, very long time ago. Over the next few days, we're going to learn how people lived in a place known as Mesopotamia and how people lived in ancient Egypt. This is the continent of Asia. We are going to be traveling back in time to an area known as the Middle East. The Middle East is a part of the continent of Asia. Iraq is a part of the Middle East. Iraq is one of the countries in the Middle East. People have been living in this area for thousands of years, but the area has not always been called the Middle East. In ancient times, part of it was called Mesopotamia. Take a look at this picture. This is a picture of the desert, and the land in Mesopotamia was mostly desert. It does not rain very much in the desert. It is so dry that it is hard for many plants and animals to live there. It is easier for plants and animals to live in areas with fertile land. Fertile means the soil in these areas is rich in nutrients and water, making it easier for plants and animals to flourish. In today's story, you're going to hear about a special part of Mesopotamia where the land isn't desert. It is fertile, meaning it's easy for plants and animals to live there. You're going to hear a made-up story about a father and his son who lived in Mesopotamia in ancient times. The father, whose name is Walred. The boy in our story, his name is Idin. Even though this is a story with made-up characters, Mesopotamia was a real place a long time ago. Listen carefully to learn the names of two rivers in Mesopotamia and why they were important to the people who lived in this area. Almost 4,000 years ago, a father and his son were walking together on the banks of a great river, close to what was then possibly the biggest city in the world, Babylon. The banks are the sloping ground on the sides of the river. The father, whose name was Walred, said to his son Idin, "See, my son, the great Euphrates River. If this river did not flow, there would be no wonderful city of Babylon, no palaces, no gardens, not even houses." Idin said, "But I don't understand, father. Did all these things appear out of the water?" "No," his father laughed. "No one just floated the palaces down here or pulled them from the water. Let me explain, Idin." They sat down on a bench overlooking the wide river which rolled before them, reflecting the palaces and the religious temples that rose high on both banks of the river. The first people who lived along this river realized that the land and surrounding the river had rich soil for planting crops, like wheat and barley for bread. These people settled or decided to live along the river because the land farther away from the river was desert, and the desert is not a very good place to grow crops. So these people built their homes along the river so that they could grow crops to feed themselves and their family. Now, let me ask you a question, Eden. Why do you think people built our city right here? Because of the water. Yes, the water kept alive the plants that were grown for food. Now look around. And Walred waved his hand in a circle. Now we have our great and beautiful Babylon. Of course, the people that settled in Babylon weren't the only ones who had the good idea to settle along the river. Other people came and settled up and down the river, forming other towns and cities. Soon, people realized they could use the Euphrates for more than just growing food. What else do you think they discovered they could use the river for? The father asked his son. Eden thought for a moment, then asked, To carry things from one city to another like we do today? Correct, his father bellowed. They traveled in boats up and down the river to trade with people from other cities. Trade means to exchange goods. The cities soon traded crops, materials to make clothing, and other items that they needed. The Euphrates River is not the only river that is used this way. People also used the Tigris River to grow crops and to trade with other cities. It is hard to think of a time when people did not use the river for growing crops and for traveling as we do today, Eden said. That it is, said his father. I have more to explain to you. You see, after a while, many people had made their homes along the Euphrates, and some had land farther back from the river. Soon it was difficult for everyone to reach the water easily. People started wondering if there was a way to get the water from the river to other parts of the city. Soon they discovered that there was a way. Eden thought for a moment, then exclaimed, The canals! Yes, his father continued. They dug ditches cut into the earth, which we call canals. The water flowed out of the river and through the canals to the areas of the city farther from the river. Then farmers could grow crops even where the river didn't flow. Our great King Hammurabi did the same thing. He had canals dug to move water all over our country from the two great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. And King Hammurabi and his helpers used an ancient way to collect rainwater. When the winter rains come, the water doesn't just wash away downstream. They made the waters run into a reservoir so that after the rain stopped, there would be water for drinking and for watering crops. Once this was done, people could stay in one place near the river and make that place better and better until we finally had Babylon, exclaimed Eden. Our King Hammurabi must be the best king of all, father. His father agreed. He is indeed a great king. And now I think it's time for us to head home, my son. As you think about our story, think about this question. Could the Mesopotamians have settled in this area if it had not been on the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates River? I want you to share with a friend if your teacher says you can. Remember, whisper nice, sweet voices. Wait for your teacher's directions, and I'll be back tomorrow with another story.